Hello, everyone. Sorry for the technical difficulties, but we are right on track. Thank you for joining us today for our District Administration Web Seminar, which is entitled Improving Student and Family Participation, which is brought to you by the generous support of our sponsor, which is All Here. All Here is on a mission to help educators use conversations to improve student outcomes. Now, before we get started, I'd just like to share just a few housekeeping items with all of you today. For technical support, please use the chat panel, which you can find on the right side of your screen. Then select on my name, which is Stephen Blackburn, and then type your message if you're having any technical issues, and I will get to you shortly. If you don't have computer speakers, or maybe you prefer to listen privately, please dial the phone number as well as the access code that I will be posting in the chat window in a few moments, so look out for that. We will also be welcoming any questions that any of you have today with a Q&A session, which will take place at the very end of the presentation. To submit a question, please use the Q&A panel, which you can find at the bottom right side of your screen, just like the chat panel, and then send your questions to all panelists, which should be the default option. If you don't see the chat or the Q&A panels, again, look to the right side of your screen and then click on the expand triangle, which should be located directly in front of the panel name to make sure you have access to it. Also, something important to note, if you would like to access this web seminar at a later time, you'll be pleased to know that everyone who registered and everyone who is attending today will receive an email with a link to the slide as well as an archive recording. And with that, it is my pleasure to introduce to all of you our panelists today. First, we have Cordelia Black, who is the Executive Director of School Culture at Lansing Public Schools. Also from Lansing Public Schools, Dr. Liesel Carlson, who is the School Improvement Data Integration Specialist there. We also have Pat Brady, who is the District Superintendent at Massena Community Schools, as well as Kristen Colarusso Martin, who is the Community Schools Director there as well. And of course, we have Joanna Smith, who is the founder and CEO at All Here. And with that, I will now hand things off to Joanna to take over. Thanks, Joanna. Thanks for joining us today. We really do appreciate it.
Thank you so much. So excited to be a part of this. While we get some slides going for folks, is everyone able to see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Yes, awesome. Well, my name is Joanna Smith, everyone. I'm the founder and CEO of All Here, as Stephen mentioned. And All Here's mission is to foster student engagement and family participation and engagement using mobile messaging that's powered by chatbots. Prior to leading All Here, I actually taught 6th and 8th grade math. And I've had the fortune of, since joining All Here to lead this work, having had our work been profiled in every outlet from DA to EdSurge to Forbes, as well as CBS, among some other outlets. But the focus of our shared time this morning or afternoon, depending on where you are located, is to hear from two district teams on how they've been able to cultivate attendance, increase participation and engagement as a foundation to promoting the success of their students and success of families in other schools. So we'll get to hear from them both in two very different contexts about how they do that. What's exciting is that we'll also get to hear about how they've been able to leverage proactive instead of reactive tactics in a way that both honors and furthers equity and outcomes for kids. And then prior to getting into some Q&A, we should have plenty of time to learn also about how they've bolstered or even fortified their both of their approaches to ensuring engagement and participation on the part of parents with personalized outreach using evidence-based interventions and tools. So it's a jam-packed hour. As Stephen shared, feel free to put questions in the chat at any time. For my panelists, treat this as a conversation. Folks are super excited to hear all about your work. And in that spirit, let's go ahead and dive in. It's now my pleasure to hand the mic over to the team at Lansing School District. So could you please share a little bit about Lansing and some of the important context around your team's focus on attendance, engagement, and participation?
Sure, thank you. And I appreciate the opportunity of being here with you all today and presenting on why attendance is important and why it's important to Lansing. Well, first off, Lansing is the capital city of Michigan. And so that itself brings about, a dynamic, if you would, if you could imagine being a school district in the capital city. We are the fifth largest district in Michigan. And so we are just about 90 miles away from Detroit. We have roughly about 92,000 students, pre-K 12. We lost quite a few students during COVID, and we'll talk about that later. And that is actually how and why we're probably sitting here today, because we took action. So we'll talk about that a little later. We have about a 90% economically marginalized population, with about 18% of our students being ELL. Our ELL students represent 85 countries across the world, and there's about 62 languages spoken here in Lansing. And so we're very proud of our diverse population. And they work very hard, and we work hard for them. And so I think that in itself is probably one of our greatest tokens, is that we're a very diverse district, and very happy about that. Lansing's attendance rates are not alone. As you will very well know, this is an issue that it's a national issue, right? It's across the country.
Absolutely. Miss
Yes.
Miss Black, to help folks understand how chronic absenteeism in Lansing really mirrors what a lot of the country went through over this past year. You've mentioned in your work that your initial focus on attendance and engagement is part of your Minutes Matter work, and we'd love if you could share some context on that as well.
Right. So because we know that attendance is key to learning, and that it is absolutely, it impacts every area of life, from school to relationships with teachers and everyone else. We kind of pushed forward and took advantage of the disruption by COVID. And we put together a multifaceted team of approximately 45 individuals district-wide. These were school leaders, teachers, our attendance department, our data departments, various departments pulled together. We collaborated and created what we call a district-wide initiative titled Minutes Matter, Make Them Count. And that is our motto. We designed a beautiful logo that we're very proud of. But Minutes Matter was all about making sure that we were focused on positive messaging for why attendance is so important, because every minute missed is essentially it goes against why you're coming to school and your success in school. And so we wanted to really focus on increasing attendance and engagement with students. So that is really what the onset of our Minutes Matter, Make Them Count district-wide initiative really was all about. Again, increasing attendance, increasing learning, increasing engagement, and achievement across the district. For every grade, and really paying close attention to the connections, our engagement with families, not just our students, but as well as our families.
Absolutely. And to support that work, you've outlined in your overview for everyone this afternoon 3 different tactics. And the first one that the Lansing team outlined was focusing on what works. Tell us a bit more about what that process looks like for you all.
Sure. I'm going to pass this over to Lisa, Dr. Carlson, and she will take us into those strategies.
Thank you so
much,
Thank
Ms.
you.
Black. So as Ms. Black talked about, our approaches and our values that led Minutes Matter was really framing it as an issue of equity, that chronic absence affects all students in the classroom and the pacing of instruction. And that we really first approached this from let's research what works both nationally and locally. And so one of the pieces of research that we had our eye on actually for the past 5 or 6 years was about positive messaging through texting, and the work of Dr. Peter Bergman, which is the foundation of All Here, which I know Ms. Smith is going to be talking more about. So we looked at that as well as the theories around nudge letters, and that's another strategy that we use, as well as we really leaned on organizations like Attendance Works and Future Ed for those research based and evidence-based practices. We also looked at what was working in our own schools, and communicating with families was key. Setting goals around attendance and engaging students in goal setting and tracking of their own attendance was very powerful.
Fantastic. And I know that if I had everyone's cameras on in the audience, I would see a lot of nodding heads, right? Of the importance of a multi-tiered, but also a very evidence-based approach to supporting families and kids, especially in a year like last year, when for many schools all across the country, the primary mode of intervention or the primary mode of what it meant to attend school shifted from being in person to being at home, and we saw that with all of the shifts, that a lot of school systems were really given an opportunity to think of what could be innovative, novel, and still evidence-based to support families and kids. And one of the things that's so powerful and that frames my next question is around understanding how you've worked with us at All Here to support families and students in an evidence-based manner through text, and specifically through your chatbot that I'll give you all the mic to tell folks more on what that process has been like for you.
Thank you. Yes, we started our partnership with All Here beginning in December of this year, and we named our chatbot Mini for Minutes Matter. And we decided to pilot the outreach through Mini in 4 of our 24 schools, but those 4 schools represent about a quarter of our population. So from pre-K through 12, to see how the use of it really could increase engagement. And so we used it in a way to send universal positive messaging on a weekly basis. And then we also used Mini to ask if they needed any additional supports or connections. And so Mini, and as we'll share in a few slides ahead, was really able to answer so many questions, really freeing up time for our human folks and colleagues to be able to focus on those students and families who needed the most intensive supports.
Absolutely. And Thank you so much. My next question is around some of the data you've seen specifically with your bot, and I love that in the name you've chosen for it, Mini. It's kind of become a friendly extension of the Minutes Matter work. I'd like to invite you to share some of your reflections, either qualitative or quantitative, on strengths and opportunities, and how it's informing your work on a go forward basis in Lansing.
Thank you. Yeah, so, one key piece is around human capital and our own limited time. And so one of the initiatives this fall was to try to really reconnect with families and support them. And we tried our own internal pilot around, we called it Take 5, where we encouraged, based on some other schools around the nation, to kind of adopt 5 families to connect with and to support and to call and text and email. And we found that to be very powerful and yet extremely time consuming. And in a district of almost 9,500 students, we simply don't have that kind of capital, human capital, to be able to do that. And so Mini, we're so used to using other kinds of AI helpers, whether it's Siri or Alexa, people
Yeah.
were really, really positive to be able to respond and to ask many questions. And she was able to answer 96% of all of their questions. And again, what an incredible universal strategy, because then it freed up our staff to be able to really support those families who needed the most intensive supports, whether that was technology help, engagement, or other types of supports. We were able to use those resources.
Thank you so much. On a go-forward basis, what are some of the focuses for folks who are on the call in Lansing when it's going to come to PD and thinking through other types of support and help for schools?
Sure, thank you. Yes, so a key piece of any kind of implementation and change effort is professional learning and supports. And so we took both those, all the research that we had done nationally and locally, as well as questions that were coming from our schools. Like, what does attendance and engagement mean in online learning? This is a whole new context. And we developed some internal frameworks that we can then use that lead to common practices, because we have children who may be within a family at multiple schools, and we knew that we needed to be consistent and we needed to have common practices and supports for our teachers and for our schools. And so we created a few frameworks that really help to be a roadmap for our next steps. So we, as Ms. Black talked about earlier, we really seized on the opportunity of the pandemic when all of our work shifted to be able to really use it as a planning year and to get our internal systems in order, and to do a lot of professional learning. So it sets us up this year to really take action.
Wonderful. And we see that in this sense of taking action, it's inspired kind of a renewed or a refreshed sense of setting goals and just keeping a pulse on how your metrics in a district-wide context are evolving over time. What are some of those goals that you set?
Sure. So we really believe in using data as establishing the reality, being able to measure our improvement and growth, being able to really know where do we need to apply additional resources and supports, and where do we need to celebrate, right? We want to be celebrating great attendance and improved attendance. And the exciting thing about attendance is that all kids start with perfect attendance at the beginning of the year. It's on us to support them to continue that. So we really believe in using multiple measures of data. And so for our school level teams, which are essential to this work, we have used the both district and school level systems attendance survey. And we got that right from Attendance Works, who shares all of their resources so kindly. And so we've been measuring what we have in place as far as our own systems to do the work and supporting it, as well as looking at what are those positive attendance rates, and then where are we seeing chronic absence. So we have a new superintendent who has embraced the work that we're doing and has set district-wide goals for attendance. And so those will also, schools will have school level goals for increasing their attendance. We're always improving our data systems. I think that's a challenge throughout all different school districts. We really need that accurate, timely, actionable data to do our work. And then as we've taken much of this year to do a lot of internal work, we're really looking to focus externally and build community excitement around our work with All Here and with our work to improve attendance and engagement. And so there's lots of things in order and in the works that Ms. Black is leading through her department around external marketing and engaging students and being part of it. So we're super excited moving forward.
That's amazing. And thank you so much, Lansing team. I'd love for you to bring us home by sharing some of the key takeaways of this work so far, many of which I think you've just shared and that we've recapped here. Are there any other key takeaways or key points of advice you would have for folks who are on this call as they're thinking through what their plans for improving engagement and ensuring that their families can participate in a way that supports those positive outcomes in this upcoming school year?
You know, I think that we keenly recognize that schools can't do this alone and that we need collaboration and partnership, whether it's from, organizations like All Here, which has been incredible to work with in that partnership, whether it's all of your community organizations and your partners, is that the more that we can collaborate together, the better it is for kids and families.
Absolutely. Miss Black, would you like to add any key takeaways so far as well?
Yes, I thank you. I think that giving voice, right? Make sure that you have administrators on board, school level leaders on board. Because ultimately, while, I don't sit necessarily in a school, I'm in and out, but administrators are the front line. And they are really important to this work, for this work, and moving this work forward. And so just making sure that you have proper voices at the table. I would also encourage that you have student and parent voice and community businesses at the table, in which we've had all. And so I think that they bring a context to the table as well that sometimes we forget about. It's not that we don't know, we just sometimes forget in our busy lives. So don't forget to do that. And I think that having all of those voices at the table and the collaboration, it all kind of blends together and good things start happening.
Absolutely, and great things are happening in Lansing. We're so thankful to both of you for sharing that work. Hang on, because I'm sure that folks will have some Q&A for you at the end. But I want to take a couple of minutes to expound on some of the research context that you may, for everyone else on the call, you may have just heard Ms. Black and Dr. Carlson speak to, and that's Peter Bergman's work. So Peter Bergman, who wasn't able to join us this afternoon, but sends his hello, is the chief research scientist at All Here. He is a professor of education and economics at Columbia, and so that everyone has that shared context to really connect the two heavy hitting cases of how are school systems like Lansing and soon you'll hear from Massena Central supporting engagement, authentic engagement in this upcoming year. So let's share it, and you'll get to hear a little bit about the research behind that approach right now. So one of the reasons for going all in on text is comparing the extent to which families open and use different mediums of exchanging information like email and mail. And what we found was that families check their phones about 150 times a day and are sending and receiving 74 texts each and every day. And folks are opening text to that extent and answering text to that extent, but only 6% of families in K-12 will access email on a regular context. And only 41% of parents will do so with mail. So it creates a powerful context for in the spirit of authentic engagement, well, starting with meeting families where they are. If they're on text and if that's the method of exchanging information that they show a clear preference to, then perhaps prioritizing that as a part of what efforts to engage with them look like. And just to put that trend in perspective, think about all the different modes of communication that families now have at their fingertips. I mean, we started way back with just mailing and phone calls, but there's so many different ways of getting information to families that being able to listen to that voice and tap into that voice at scale is a critical piece of what distinguishes school systems who are evolving along with their families and those who are not yet able to do so. Dr. Bergman's work centered on the concept of a nudge, so giving someone a gentle reminder or piece of encouragement to change their behavior. So nudges are always tied to a behavior or a specific action that you want a family or a child to take. And as the Lansing team shared, the type of research that was done that's since become the context for all here provides a powerful ground to make nudges happen. So Dr. Bergman did a set of very rigorous randomized control trials. Randomized control trials, also called RCTs, are seen as the gold standard for research, whereas students or families are randomly assigned to receive one or more interventions. And then you can, as a part of that research work, be able to track movements or changes in behaviors as well as outcomes to that specific intervention. And what Dr. Bergman found was that when it comes to attendance and using nudges as a part of that work, 11% of families typically don't understand an A to F scale. A third of families, when it comes to consuming information about how their child is doing, don't know how many report cards that they should get each year. And although there are different types of comms that families are often subject to receiving, 57% of parents are not satisfied with the types of communication that they receive from their child's school specific to their academic progress. What Dr. Bergman also found was that families can regularly understate their child's missed assignments as well as absences. And if we're depending on families to participate or engage by doing things such as logging on to check their students' online gradebook, well, in the lowest performing schools, fewer than 10% of families actually do that. So they're not they're not actually receiving that information. So that it sets up a right context to thinking through some of what you as a leader might think of what constitutes a family being engaged. And what Dr. Bergman found was that by taking information out of an SIS and out of an LMS and fashioning that into highly actionable updates about grades, coursework, and of course absences, with an emphasis on the right wording, the right frequency, and the right data to maximize impact. One, fewer than 10% of families actually opted out. So one, parents were actually receiving the information, they were consuming the information, and it made them better participants and better supporters and more fully engaged in their children's education, to the extent where there was a GPA increase of 0.23 points in that RCT. Course failures were reduced in that work by 38%, and there was a 17% increase in the proportion of students who were attending class in a regular way. And not only could those conversations, as we found at all here, consists of purely academic updates, but they can also be expanded to provide students and parents with on-demand help. So families and students can ask any question at any time, even 1 a.m. in the morning, 2 a.m. in the morning, 8 p.m. at night, not 9 p.m. at night, and receive an answer. But chatbot interactions can also make conversations fun and giving support fun through graphics, GIFs, and wit. And the bots can also be used proactively. So send information to families and students and get information in return. As a part of the package that we'll send out after this call, we'll send a copy of the texting best practices for folks who just want to try their hand at applying some of these best practices overall. But what we've gotten in feedback from schools connected to Dr. Bergman's work are that the investment of time that it would take to manually scale or manually implement this kind of strategy could quickly outpace the capacity of even like a dedicated team. So if you think of a chatbot, so you've heard the team at Lansing refer to their bot. The purpose of their chatbot is really putting on a kind of like Iron Man suit on top of that research so that it gets to practice and the right student is getting the right support at the right time. So for many, specifically the bot in Lansing, there wasn't any software that parents had to download. They accessed it on their phones, and they could have conversations about any academic, any school-related topic at any time that had an impact on those outcomes. So that's a little research brief. So when you hear our two powerhouses talk about what text evidence-based texting looks like as a part of their interventions work, we have that context. And with that context, we now get to hear from Massena Central School System about their incredible work. So Massena team, welcome, and we'd love for you to share a little bit of context on your schools, as well as your work for folks who are listening in from other states.
Well, thank you, Joanna. Thank you for having us. We're always happy to talk about our program here at Massena Central. I'll provide a little bit of the background and how we came to be a community school, a rural community school, which has generated some interest around the country because most community schools tend to be in urban areas. Massena is located in St. Lawrence County. We're called the North Country. There's 62 counties in New York. We are the largest geographically, nestled up on the St. Lawrence River, closer to Canada than the rest of the world. We're between Syracuse and Central New York, and we have Ottawa just across the border, and also Montreal. But we're certainly not the largest in population. We only have 109,000 people in our county, 15,000 of which live here in Massena. Massena is the largest of the 18 school districts that make up our county, but nothing near Lansing. We're about 2,500 students, and we're considered the largest. You don't get into schools like 10,000 until you get down in the Albany area, in the urban area. So we're definitely different in that respect. But it's great listening to you because we do share many of the same successes and challenges. So Massena was once very much a hub of industry, and like many areas of what we consider the Rust Belt, we've seen that decline. We have the St. Lawrence Seaway here in Massena, which we connect the big lakers coming from the Great Lakes in central United States up through the St. Lawrence River and out to the Atlantic. We have the New York Power Authority here. And we also still have Alcoa, but we used to have General Motors had a plant here, Reynolds Metals had a plant here. And like many Rust Belt areas, a lot of those plants have gone and taken the jobs. And we've seen an increase, therefore, in poverty. We're already one of the demographically, we have more higher poverty rates than many of the counties in the state. But we've seen this increase here in Massena over the last 15 years, where we've gone from about 45% of our families who are eligible for free and reduced lunch to now 64%. And so we were, with this trajectory, we were ripe for bringing in a program that was going to help us to support students that would reduce the barriers they have to their education. And that's what community schools is all about. About 5 years ago, the state of New York allocated monies towards poorer districts in a community schools program. We hadn't heard about community schools. We really didn't know much about it. It was an urban program. So when this money came to us, we spent some time researching community schools. We looked at the National Coalition of Community Schools and to get an idea of what the program was about. We visited some schools in New York City, in the Binghamton area. And in the end, we realized we needed three things. We needed a dynamic coordinator who is going to work all the time in supporting students and our administrators, our teachers, our programs here, and create partnerships within the community, the county, and beyond. We also knew we needed to survey our community to find out, we knew what many of our needs were, but to get their input and see what the needs are and how we can better partner with the community. And we needed an advisory board who would represent various stakeholders in the community, and it would help to support the program. And that's exactly what we did when we hired Kristen, and she's going to speak in a moment about some of the specifics about what we do. But we formed all of this infrastructure, and I would say in the 4 years that she'll show you, we have created these partnerships. And really, what a community school is co-locating services, resources in the school from the community that break down the barriers to students being able to learn in the classroom. It can be anything from food, clothing, furniture, housing, healthcare, and as Kristen will show you, we've brought many of those parties to the table and are now doing that work within our schools.
We love that. And one of the reasons why that's so powerful is that because attendance is rarely an isolated challenge, right? It happens in the context of issues that can be far reaching. So we certainly appreciate that context, and thank you for sharing it. And this may be one for Kristen, but I understand that Massena's vision for attendance and engagement is very aligned to RTI and MTSS, as well as having a school system rapid response team, and has a really deep component to engaging parents and engaging students in person. And I know that we've had some really great conversations on the All Here team on what this work looks like in Massena previously. So I'm hoping you can share a bit about your approach to intervention using your community school model.
I can speak to these areas as well. So response to intervention is a program we use to support students who are having difficulty meeting the standards, the state standards, usually math and ELA. And we use a program called iReady. It's research-based. It provides assessments at the beginning, middle, and end of the year. And it's an online platform where teachers work with students, interventionists, math, ELA, work with students so that they can master the skills. And so they do a combination of in-person instruction and also using computer-based instruction using iReady. And the iReady standards are very much tied to the state standards. So we use the scores that we see at the beginning assessment, middle assessment, and end of assessment to track the growth. We also have we didn't have them last year because of the COVID, but we also have state testing that aligns with that. And so we have a tiered system. Tier 1 is for most students, they receive their instruction in the classroom with a regular education teacher. Tier 2 are those who are struggling to meet the standards. They meet individually with an intervention teacher, small groups, and they may have other resources added to them as necessary. And then Tier 3 are those who are really struggling, and they get much more time with a teacher, intervention teacher, and also they have smaller groups. And teachers meet, they have data meetings, they meet with the principal, they look at every teacher, they look at that data to check in on them to see what is needed for any individual student. Like Lansing, we've also used Attendance Works, and it's a great system. We've used much of it for our campaigns. We send attendance letters that explain to a parent where their child is compared to other children. That's kind of a catch letter that, they kind of understand, well, they think their child is doing well attendance-wise, but when compared to others, they can see that might not be the case, and that's a bit of a nudge. Lots of classroom incentives, both at individual grade level, and you see some of them in high school, spin the wheel, popcorn Fridays. But as part of our strategic planning, we use attendance, chronic absenteeism, which is missing more than 10% of school days in a year. We use that as a metric, and we have a 3-year plan to reduce that at each of the levels, along with student achievement. And now I'll turn it over to Kristen. We'll talk about our community schools rapid response team.
Thank you, Pat. So one of the initiatives that we wanted to highlight with this group is our rapid response team. So the students and families that are identified as being in need of additional support, especially wraparound support, goes to our rapid response team. And that's a group of school and community partners that meet in person. Last year it was virtually, every month to provide wraparound services to our highest need families, so that if we find out that families are living in unstable housing or experiencing food insecurity, or even if the student is not getting a good night's sleep because they're sleeping on a couch or recliner, we work really closely with this group to try to meet all of the students' needs, so that then we can engage in conversations with the families about attendance and coming to school and school engagement. We found that by working collaboratively with our partners and with our students and their families, we're able to build much better partnerships, and we're all about relationship building here, and it helps us build relationships. Some of the other strategies that we've used are doing home visits with our incoming kindergarten and 7th grade students. So our teacher teams go out in the summer and they visit families. It's voluntary for the students, or for the teachers and for the families, and teachers receive a $25 stipend for every visit. We engage parents every month with parent cafes that are based on timely topics. We use the community cafe model, which is a short presentation followed by facilitated conversation to engage our parents and our families. We also work a lot with food access. Our students at the junior high are growing and eating their own food. They're making a little bit of money by doing plant sales within the district. And we also have a junior high food pantry for families in the district that we work with the Salvation Army on. We have a big back to school event where students can come and get a new change of clothes, or not a new change of clothes, but a new outfit to wear on the first day of school, some free school supplies, connect with our community partners, and get a free haircut from our BOCES cosmetology students. This past year, we had homework tutors through a partnership with our local colleges and universities, where these college students were available as homework mentors, but also as positive young adult mentors for some of our students. And we did a district mindfulness and yoga initiative to help students learn how to deal with and address the collective trauma and anxiety and stress that came out of COVID that they're still experiencing through the fear of COVID and everything that was happening around the country, you know, how to kind of find and learn tools to de-escalate themselves and to manage their anxiety. And we had a lot of success with that. We partnered with our neighboring Native American tribe. So we also had cross-cultural mentoring as well, and that was really exciting. We'll be heading into year 2 of that this year coming up.
Awesome. And Kristen and Pat, thank you so much for sharing your powerful work and your scope of work and vision for attendance intervention that's truly holistic and by being holistic can certainly have a powerful impact on student outcomes. Shifting to how people on this call can take some of those best practices and prepare for back to school and facilitating engagement with conversations over chat. I'd love to hear your reflections on how you embedded Radar, your chatbot, in a focus on families being engaged this past school year, and how you plan on leveraging Radar, your bot, during your reopening.
Yes, we love Radar, our chatbot. So our school mascot is the red Raider, which you can see in the bottom right corner of your screen. So we named our bot Radar, and we looked at it as an approach or as a strategy to reach out to parents in any way that they might feel comfortable. So we also agreed with Lansing that people are comfortable using Siri or Alexa. And we utilized Radar to send positive, affirming messaging, but also to send messages that were important for the school district. So we would send a message saying it's getting close to the end of the year. Do you need any academic support? And then parents could text back, yes, I'm interested. We worked really closely with the All Here team to customize our messages. So once we got the hang of the bot and people got used to it, we actually dug a little bit deeper and said, okay, do you need help, you know, with academics? And then parents said yes. And then the bot said, okay, here's a form to fill out where we're going to connect you with our homework hotline and our university tutors. And if parents still said, well, I need more support than that, then we sent the escalation over to our teacher and our building principal teams so that they could connect with our teachers directly. We also used Radar to address food insecurity that was happening. So we let families know that our school lunches and breakfasts were free, that there were meal pack pickups, and you know, that we were so excited to see them. Let us know if you need deliveries, if you have any challenges, please, you know, talk to us. I think that my favorite Radar story is that the All Here team shared that one of our parents, well, we sent out a message saying, you know, do you need anything to help support your child's learning? We're so excited that we can bring everybody back this year, or bring everybody back at this point of the year. And one dad said, well, my daughter would really like a new boat, and he got really specific with the boat specs. So I did, you know, myself and another person on our team were kind of the escalation coordinators. So we would make calls to the parents and say, we got your question to Radar. Somebody's going to be reaching out to you from your child's school. And then I would ask them, what did you think about this? Like, how was this experience? And they were like, well, we're surprised you called us back so quickly, because there's a 24-hour turnaround time, which the All Here team was really clear with us, like, you need to call them back as soon as possible. So we'd call them back right away. And they were like, wow, that's great. You called us right away. And then they said that it felt kind of weird at first to talk to the school on a chatbot, but they really, really liked it. And we had parents and other family members asking if they could get added to the chatbot. And we had a very, very positive experience from our families. So we wanted to take this current, or I guess the last school year, some time to get our families used to the idea of using the bot and engaging with the bot. And we really hope to drill down into attendance initiatives for the upcoming school year. That's our hope with Raider. So now that we've created a positive space, we like Raider, Raider is friendly. Now we're going to use Raider to nudge you that your child is missing a little more school than you may be aware of, and that attendance is really important.
Absolutely.
So Raider, yeah, join a Raider fit in really nicely with our whole child approach.
Thank you. And thank you so much for sharing your work. I know that, you know, if similarly to Lansing, if everyone's cameras, if we can see everyone's cameras, I'm sure I see a lot of nodding heads at, you know, the importance of attendance awareness and saving staff time and providing students and families with interventions that are evidence-based and multi-tiered, but also that sense of joy, right? Of being heard and being able to listen to and respond to that student voice and that family voice at scale. It's really what it's really empathy at scale when we could take family voice and student voice and use it to provide very personalized help and support that reaches the right student at the right time. I know we have a few minutes left, so I want to first thank all of our panelists from the Lansing School District team and the Massena Central team for coming on and taking time out of their afternoon to share their insights, to share their takeaways with us. And in these final few minutes, we'd love to kick it to Stephen to moderate any questions that folks may have for either of our teams or to anyone on the All Here team if there are any specific research focused types of questions.
Definitely. Perfect. Well, thank you again, all of you, for your expertise, and thank you, Joanna, for facilitating, for sure. Now, like you said, we do have some time for a Q&A where our panelists can answer any questions that you may have. For those of you who have not yet submitted a question, you can do so now by submitting it in the Q&A panel, which should be located below the chat panel at the bottom of your screen. So this first question that we got, it's in regards to what this particular district's teachers have been facing post-COVID, and they're asking how they can ease the burden for their teachers and help with this challenge in post-COVID world. And with that in mind, could you share some examples? So that could be either Lansing or Medina. Who could share those examples?
So I'll give a shot at it. I think the main thing is just making sure that we're aware of what teachers are going through. So that would be, you know, number one, and making sure that we are taking time to allow voice for them to share with us what it is they need. And then I think one of the things that we did during COVID is we actually started an employee self-care and wellness program, and it was a big hit. That gave teachers and all staff, for that matter, across the board, an opportunity to have fun together, participate in some self-care activities, such as we had a holiday hustle event. We provided chair massages, 10-minute chair massages. We had a CrossFit program, and we went to our community and basically asked our community to help us out with, you know, offering and donating services to our staff. And so I think that really it goes back to being totally interested in what our teachers need to get through. Another thing that we did in terms of All Here is teachers actually have access to the back end of All Here to see how their students are performing in regards to attendance. And I'm not sure how Medina did it, but we didn't ask our teachers to do that. We wanted them to focus on academics, and we did the lab work in the back through our attendance office. And so that's one way or example where we took some of the pressure off, some of the accountability or responsibility off of the teacher.
I would just briefly echo what Cordelia said. I think it's understanding their need. The teachers were the front line of COVID and with the students and having to do hybrid scheduling and remote, and many of them do platforms. They're looking for some sense of normalcy. As the administrators, it's our job to help to provide that for them. We did mindfulness and yoga and deep breathing with the teachers this year. We're going to continue that in year 2 to give them a chance to work together, relax, and we're also adding a couple of social workers this year to work using our federal money to work with families and be a liaison with the staff. It's more resources we can provide that will support our teachers as well.
Perfect. And we are at the top of the hour, but I am going to sneak in one last question here. And this one's for Lansing. So this person was asking, how do you personalize the chatbot in all the languages that you have in your district?
Sure. So, and Al here can also jump in on this because there are, the messaging is available in a few of the languages that we have. I think that we have some different supports in place in Lansing, some of which we've been able to leverage through the use of the chatbot, and some in which we use in, other types of communication. We have individuals called cultural brokers, and so they provide language and support to our families as they are learning English as many times a second, third, fourth language, many multilingual families. I think there's the drive to kind of translate many of those positive messages into additional languages in order to reduce those communication barriers.
Absolutely, and I will quickly add that ties into a question someone else put in the chat. So to implement your own chat bot, just send a note to hello@allhere.com and we'd be happy to help you. And as a part of our implementation process, we take the customization off of your plate. So we ask for any existing documents, files that help us to quote unquote program your chatbot's brain, and then the rest is up to us. So we make it as easy and as time friendly as possible for folks to launch their bots. And if you're using a messaging system, I know that both Lansing and Massena have other platforms that they also use to exchange information with parents. We complement as well as play well with those. So in any languages, we make sure that we become aware of those during the onboarding process, so that families can exchange texts in the bot in the way that works best for them. And we focus on really complementing any existing platforms that you currently have.
I think just to add on to the key pieces, and Joanna spoke about it in the middle of the session, is that not any message is sent. Intentional, positive messaging that was found to be supportive, convincing, and that nudge to change behavior. So we are targeting the most effective use of our time and of our chats. And I think that's really key. Working with the All Here team, they make those suggestions that have been elevated from the research, and then tailor them and customize them to your own local context, just like Kristen was talking about the work in Massena. So, and our chatbot gets smarter every time she answers a question, and it's really kind of cool. She can deal with enrollment questions or support questions, and I think it's been a really powerful tool for Lansing.
And also, Joanna, very quickly, I saw in the chat, someone asked if you could provide the email address again for them to reach out to you if you have a couple of minutes.
So it's hello, as in HELLO, at allhere.com. And if you go forward to the very last slide, it'll be posted there for folks who have any questions or would or who would like to get in touch after the fact.
Perfect. Well, we are at the top of the hour here today, so that's all we have for questions. But again, thank you, all of you, for your insights. Our audience really appreciates it as well. And with that said, I would like to thank our attendees for joining us today as well. For those of you who enjoyed our presentation, there are many more upcoming web seminars like this one that are provided by district administration, which is the leader in editorial coverage of news, trends, current issues in K-12. Are a wide range of readers here at DA. They subscribe for free and they stay up to date with us through our print magazine, which many of you are familiar with, the digital edition of the magazine, our newsletters, and web seminars like this one. And for those of you who would like to watch this web seminar again, or maybe those of you who believe that the solutions provided would be helpful to your colleagues, you will be pleased to know that there will be an archive recording of this web seminar that will be available at the URL, which you can see in your browser here. And you can also expect to receive an email from our team over here at DA at some point tomorrow, which will include a link to all of the slides as well as an on-demand video. And with that, my name is Stephen Blackburn. Thank you, all of you, for taking the time to chat with us today. We really do appreciate it. Have a great rest of your summer, everyone.
Thanks so much, everyone.
Thanks for joining. Thanks for having us.